this might be a fairly straightforward way to get a hydraulic brake onto a blaster, and it's a way that I've never seen before. I've scoured YouTube looking for what guys have done, scoured the blaster forums for what people are doing, and this may be the best, simplest, and lowest cost method of any that I've seen, so fingers crossed. Alright guys, I got another small project to start here. It's one that I've been thinking about over the course of the last year, kind of setting some things up, but I hadn't pulled the trigger on. I have a Yamaha Blaster. It's a 2001. They made the Blasters from 87 to 2003 with a cable pull brake system. Then 2003 to 2006 it did have hydraulics. They changed up a few things, and then the two strokes kind of went on hiatus for a while. So I love this Blaster. This is a 2001. We picked this up a few years ago, and a lot of stuff's been stripped out of it. There's no headlights, plastics have been cut down. It's had the oil injection delete done. What else? It just stripped down. Everything's held with zip ties, etc. But for the power to weight ratio, this is such a fun platform. It's a smaller ATV platform compared to some of the other sport quads. Incredibly nimble in the woods compared to something like an EX, a 400 EX, or some of the other Yamaha 350s and 450s that are 4-strokes that have reverse, a battery, and all that. This is 80 pounds lighter, so it just rips, it just floats. Not having a rear brake takes away from the experience. So this is where we're starting. This peg was swapped out with something else before I got it, so there's no mechanism here to hold a brake lever. You can see pieces were cut out probably with a Sawzall. Nothing on the rear other than the mounts for the old original cable pull caliper. I've been accumulating some parts. We have an OEM brake rotor, and we have some other pieces here. We have some levers. This is off a, I believe this is a Raptor 660. And I want to see if this would fit. Here's part of the challenge. So here, this is a setup from a, I think it's an 04 Blaster. Here's challenge number 1. The mounts for the frame are off at maybe a 30-degree angle compared to, this is an original. This is off a cable pull Blaster perpendicular to the pedal. So this is what I've got to work with for that Blaster. Everything is really tight up to the frame, so where this pedal mounts and has clearance is important. For example, trying to swap one of these other pedals on, one of these other, let me start over. There's only just this clearance right here around this part of the frame. So it sits right there, and it has that vertical stub, which when you depress the brake, it pulled that forward, and the cable was kind of secured through here, so you pulled the cable laterally to do your brakes. In hindsight, maybe I should have just done a cable pull rear brake system, but I'd love to see if I can make this hydraulic. So I have a vertical stub, pushes forward. What I'm looking to do is mount that reservoir about here, and then we're going to weld on a bar so that when I depress the foot peg, I can get that vertical motion on the back, depressing the reservoir. If I get that going, we'll weld a plate or something here that we can secure that reservoir. Then we've got the master cylinder. We'll have to mount that master cylinder somewhere where I can get that cap as vertical as possible, but not next to the heat of the pipe. So this could be a little interesting. One thought is that I'll put a bar right here, and I'll just put that reservoir just on the outside. It might be okay riding my leg a little bit, but that's fine. Then we run our hydraulic line back here. We slip that rotor on. Then we've got to fab something up to hold that caliper. The bolts for what I have, the mount doesn't mount this, plus it's got to offset almost an inch over in this direction. So probably gonna have to fab up a plate that runs from here, secures with these bolts, and then hangs out down here, and then some spacers of some nature that set off so we can mount that. That's the idea. And I've been just waiting to start this because it's riding season and having a lot of fun, but this front end likes to go up in the air, and with only the front brakes, you change your riding style if you can't put the front end on the ground. So yeah. So from this OEM, as I was just saying, we have this lever. This one has the clearances that we need, but because it's vertical, when I press the lever it pulls laterally, and I need to weld some kind of a tab on here so I get off this pivot point that vertical motion. From that vertical motion, we'll get that tab into the bottom here so we can depress our brake. We'll mount this, we'll mount the reservoir, run it back. Here's our caliper. This is the mount. This caliper came off, pretty sure this was a Raptor 660. I can't recall what year. So this, somewhere, I'm going to have to join onto this mount with another fabbed mount to set this, instead of, you know, uptight, off on the back, where that mount can kind of come, bend down. This will sit on that mount, offset it. Then I think we're in business. This is the parking brake apparatus. I'll probably do a block off kit on here. I don't think we'll end up using this. The Blaster does have a parking brake on the front, but really the only way to find out if I'm going to be successful is to start. To start, we got to drop the Nerf, so we got to pull a bolt. We got to pull 2 bolts on this pedal here. I think this will slide off. Once that's off, I should be able to start mocking things in, potentially cutting some cardboard so I can figure out what my pieces look like. I do have a couple of pieces of mild steel here, a lot of mil scale, but I think between some of these scraps we should be able to come up with something. Here's my foot peg. Here's the, well, whatever they swapped out to. But I've got the same bolt pattern, all good there. All good. Here's the idea. Right now I haven't done anything fancy. I'm just bringing this back to factory for the moment. That's what I was talking about, the clearance. And if I were to hold up one of these levers, like this one, I wanted to do a conversion off of a Raptor 660. You see it bumps it, because of the way this sets, it bumps it into the frame, and with the other foot pegs putting it back here, you can't use this lever. The whole thing would have to stand off, and I don't think we could make that work. The reason I was thinking about doing this is the tab already existed. I may end up cutting this tab, welding on, but it depends on how much clearance I need for the reservoir. Speaking of the reservoir, I think I like this direction. Pushes this a little further back away from my leg if I mount this way. I'm picturing something of the nature of a plate, obviously ground down, cleaned up, couple of holes put in it. It can't slip back, so kind of just bump it in like so. Cut and cleaned up. Oh, maybe sitting, let's forget the plate for a moment, sitting like that. not my finest work, but should be enough to get me an understanding of where functional is here. Don't need much, ½ inch. Should be plenty. So this piece of cardboard, this OEM peg, this is the OEM cable pull. Here's the thought: if I weld this arm on here, when I pivot, we get the upward motion. There's some ability to laterally move here, so I gotta be pretty close. My thought is I'm gonna get that piece made. Get that piece made. Once I have that, then I got to figure out how to secure this. Oh boy. If it ends up sitting about here, I don't have a lot of good option for putting a plate on here to mount to because of the frame, unless I do a standoff, which I don't really want to do. My thought was to put this up here. But that is so far away. That'd be a lot of leverage on this guy, just unnecessary. But because this peg is so far forward compared to pivot points, what I might do is cut my piece long, weld it on there, then I can clamp and slide and figure out where my favorite spot is. If I went a little longer, in some ways it doesn't really matter. Alright, let's clean this up and bust out the welder for a bit. Rough edges off, mill scales off. Alright, first pass is a bust. The idea was to use this piece of mild steel and tack weld it to this piece of what looks to be stainless. Cleaned it up, but with my little Chicago electric welder, I'm only able to get enough heat current to bond to the thin bracket up here. I'm not getting any penetration down here at all. So literally this guy just flakes right off. So I'm going to clean this up, grind off this mess, and we're going to have to get our hands on a different welder, borrow a different welder or something to see if we can get this tacked in so we can keep going. So bust for today.